STP, where STP stands for show the plan. And when we look at the process of the detoxification, we're going to talk about the toxics that are inside of our body. And second, we're going to talk about the imbalance of nutrients that are inside of our body. And the third, unfortunately, is just by aging alone. So I'm going to explain to you about these three processes in more detail. That the first thing that we're going to talk about is the toxics that are inside of our body. That we all have this heart, and as it pumps out the blood into our liver, and our liver functions to purify and to filter out our blood that has circulated all throughout our body and collected all of these toxic inside of us. It will pass through the liver, and as it's passing through the liver, it will go back into our bodies and back into our hearts, and that's what we call blood circulation. But the problem here is that this liver will purify about 70% of what's inside of us, but this is unable to purify the 30%. And when we look at the makeup of the 30%, it's the things that you may already know, which is alcohol, smoking, fast food, medication, processed food, and also pollution. So through all of these, it continues to be mixed with the purified blood, and it continues to circulate throughout our body. So if we were to compare this to a cup, these toxins continue to collect inside of our body. And the total amount that is inside is called body burden. And body burden is the total amount of toxics that are inside of us. And we can think about this from level 0 to level 6. And if we don't continue to get rid of these toxics, then these diseases are going to happen. So when we look at level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, when we look at level 1 and level 2, we're talking about being tired, catching a cold, or that continued fatigueness, or inflammation. And those are what we can call level 1 and level 2. And when we look at 3 and 4, we can think about it as high blood pressure, or we can also see diabetes. And we are now seeing more shingles. And then when we go up to level 5 and 6, we can see a change in cell formation, and we can see cancer, and we can even see death. So we have to get rid of these toxics out of our body. So if our body was just like a cup, and we can just dump out these toxics, that will be really, really great. But realistically, that's impossible. So when we think about water, in order for us to purify the water, that in that process, how it happens is that we continue to pour in clean water, and then we put chemicals in, and then we put more clean water in, and then we put more chemicals in, and we repeat this process over and over again to purify the water. And our body is very similar. So this 70% we pour into our bodies, and through what we call jumpstart, we're going to empty out what's inside of us. So when we look at this program called TR90, it's a change in our body where 15 days is cleansing, And 15 days is when we are losing. And 60 days is that we are maintaining. So when we look at eating Jumpstart for the first 15 days, that's when we are having a time of cleansing. So then next we're going to talk about that imbalance in malnutrition. So when you look at what you ate, we're talking about carbs, fat, protein, vitamins, minerals, and fibers. When you look at the majority of us, we can see that we are actually malnourished. But it's not because we didn't eat enough, but it's because we ate a lot of carbs and fat, and we didn't eat enough of vitamins and minerals and fibers. So there is an imbalance, or balance it has been broken. But often we think about if we gain weight, then we are unhealthy. Or when our blood pressure goes up, then we say that it's unhealthy, that we are unhealthy. But rather, we need to think about the contrary, is that if we get healthy, then we won't get fat and we won't have high blood pressure. So our program does not focus on this, but rather we are focusing on increasing our health and becoming healthy. So we will be drinking a shake for 90 days, and that's when we are eating a well-balanced diet. So we are creating a healthy body, and we are creating that balance once again. So I'm sorry to say this, but the last one is aging. And this is something that's equivalent, unfortunately, to disease, because as we continue to age, we are getting closer to getting sick. Because when we are in our 20s, everything just seems fine, but we can't do the same thing when we are in our 40s or 50s that we used to be able to do in our 20s. So when you look at this timeline of our age, and we look at 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So when you look at about being 50 and 60, we have this door that we can call a disease, a door to a disease. So when we look at, in our 20s, it seems like we're just walking in place. We're not really getting closer. But when we get to our 30s, it seems like that we are getting there closer. And when in 40s, it seems like we are running. And once we get into our mid 40s and 50s, it seems like we have a turbo engine just attached to us and we're just running towards that door. But the bigger problem is that if we continue these sort of life balance or imbalance, then we are essentially pulling that door disease forward into. So our program has this age lock program that essentially, if you think about this, it may be called age lock, that it's locking us in place. So it initiates its work within 48 minutes and it goes for 12 hours. So we will be eating what's called fit and control. So for example, if I took this at 7 a.m., then I will also have to take this at 7 p.m. So it's important that we take this in a 12-hour time frame. So if I explain this to people, then they say that, if I do exactly what you say, then I won't age. But that's essentially correct. So I'm going to explain that to you a little bit further. So again, our TR90 is a 90-day program, and the reason why it's a 90-day program is I think that if I explain this, you will understand this a little bit more. We are made up of cells. We are made up of about 60 trillion cells. And we are not just made up of, this cell that just lives forever and ever, but rather it lives and dies, it lives and dies. So when we look at red blood cell, it lives about 30 days. And we look at white blood cells, it's about 7 days. And when we look at skin cells, it's about 28 days. And when we look at our bones, it's about 7 years, which is why we say that our body changes about every 7 years. So when we look at all of these cells, that the average lifespan of a cell is about 30 days. So when we look at a formation of a cell and we say, but we go through these lifestyles, these bad lifestyles, then we create these deformation in our cells. So if we don't continue to work towards maintaining a healthy body, then we continue to deform our cell. And as our cells replicate, it replicates in the same way, in that deformed way. So if we are continuing to live and eat this imbalanced diet, then that deformation continues to get bigger and bigger. Then 30 days later, we are going through the same deformation cell that's replicating inside of us. So as it continues to deform and get worse, then that's when diseases are formed. But when we look at our program, what it's actually doing is that it's locking our age, and it's actually restoring its original formation. So it's going to decrease the deformation as we continue to lock in that age. And it continues to go back to its original form. So at the very least, when we are that it's about 3 phases in order for that abnormal deformed cell to become a normal cell. And that's what we were able to learn. And through this program, there is a 1 month program. But because we know that there's 3 phases, we recommend a 3-month program. And when we look at the functionality of this program, it's something that cannot be compared. So if you join us, you will have a successful diet and successful lifestyle that will create a balanced and healthy lifestyle. Thank you.